So now we're going to move on to the question number 3. What are the possible tabular display for one quantitative data? Can you use Excel to generate the display? And to answer this question, and again, this is a review, so it's a very general question. You have to go back to think about in chapter 2 what we learned, the method we learned for the quantitative data. So quantitative data such as the temperature, your GPA, and your height, your weight. So they are all quantitative data. So if you receive a quantitative data, if somebody asks you to have to use a tabular display, so what would be your possible options? So the answer is frequency, relative frequency, percent frequency, cumulative frequency distribution, and the percent cumulative frequency distribution, and the relative cumulative frequency distribution. So we generally have 6 different possible methods, and so that is for one quantitative data. So after you identify the possible method, so if it's in the exams, you only need show me one of the method. You don't have to show me all 6 charts because they are basically the same, and I just want you to correctly using the proper method. So you can use either frequency, relative frequency, percent frequency, and so pay attention on the classes. Okay, pay attention on the classes. So for the exam, I will let you know how you're gonna define the classes. So let's practice together. So in this video, we mainly focus on how to practice on generate those charts. So first, quantitative data. Look at the A, B, C, D, E column. Which variables are quantitative data? So we already know after you finish question number 1 and 2, we only have one category data, that's X1. So therefore, Y, X2, and X3, so they are all quantitative data. So only X1 is categorical data. X1 is categorical. Y, X2, X3, they're all quantitative data. So in this video, I will only focus on one of the variable because we focus on method. And so if you, when you are practicing, reviewing, if you chose other variable, you need to make sure the method you're using is proper, okay? So what we're gonna focus on now, we will focus on let's choose X3, okay, X3. So you definitely can choose Y or X2 because they are both quantitative data. So in this video, we're gonna focus on X3, earned round average. So earned round average. And so first of all, if it's gonna be in a exam, I will let you know how you define the classes. Obviously, we learn in the class that if it's quantitative data, if you want to create a frequency distribution, you cannot use COUNTIF. You have to use the pivot table method. If you're using that method, you have to know how to group your data, right? How to group the data. So look, this is the data we have here, and so let's just do the class width equal to 0.5. So the class width equal to 0.5, and the smallest value we're gonna choose 3. So we are choosing 3 as the smallest value, and then we're gonna use the largest value 5, and the class width by 0.5. Okay, you definitely can choose other values. However, if in the exam, I will define it for you. And so in this practice, you just need to understand you actually have to identify your smallest, the largest value, and your class width. Now let's do it together. So insert pivot table, and then we can select all the data at this point, and then we can decide which variable we're going to use when we are creating our pivot table. Okay, so after we select the data, you will instantly saw pivot table field. So in this practice question, in this video, I will only show you X3. So all the information will only route to X3. So therefore, we first drag X3 to rows, and then we drag X3 to values. Okay, so everything is routed to X3. So now let's find my pivot table. Where is my? Let me shrink it a little bit to try to, okay, I got it. So here's my pivot table, okay? So obviously, first of all, you see my row labels are not correct because they haven't grouped it. We're gonna group it based the information I just mentioned at the beginning of the video. So smallest value 3, large value 5, and then the class width is 0.5. So we choose one of the value here, right click the mouse, and then we choose group. So starting at, like I said, 3, ending at 5, increase by 0.5. Okay, and then we'll click OK. So, is this right? Look at the grand total here. It's 122.2. So obviously it cannot be frequency. Frequency has to be the integer. So here actually, instead of counting the number, how many observations belong to each class, what we got here actually is the sum. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose one value under the cell, right click the mouse, show value as, summarize value as count. So now we got our frequency distribution, right? So frequency distribution for this quantitative data, and we can very easily to convert to the percent frequency by choose one value under the columns. On the column count, running average, and we can choose show value as percent grand total, right? So this is my percent frequency distribution. We also can get a cumulative frequency distribution. What we're gonna do is under the count of the earning run average, we right click the mouse. We can choose show value as, and what we're gonna do is we can say use the percent running total in, or we can do percent, or we can even do the percent of total. So both are fine, okay? You can choose percent of or percent running total in. Well, I'm going to use the percent running total in, and then on average. So now we receive cumulative frequency distribution. So again, in the exams, it doesn't matter which table you show me. You can show me frequency, relative frequency, percent frequency, or cumulative frequency distribution. But the key here is the data you are analyzing is quantitative data. Second, I'm asking for the tabular display. Okay, tabular display. And so don't forget all the exam questions require you interpret it. And so based on the table or chart you developed, and you should get some kind of insight. Okay, so for instance, like this case, let me showing back to the frequency distribution. So based on this, we notice that among these 30 teams, so majority of them having the run average is between 4 to 4.5. So that's a good insight. Okay, so that is the end of the this question.